Now at 5, Joplin police released the name of an overnight shooting suspect. Plus, upgrades on Fort Scott's east side are in the works, and
much of the Midwest and the Northeast are at the beginning of a heat wave. I'm Jared Hill with why extreme temperatures at this point in the season are especially dangerous.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Joplin authorities today released the name of the suspect in last night's double shooting, and we're learning more about the circumstances. This is KOIM News at 5. I'm Dow Quick. They've arrested 19-year-old D.W. Bryant of Joplin. Police were seeking charges for first-degree assault, first-degree robbery, and armed criminal action. Police believe Bryant shot 2 men on the 1700 block of South Annie Baxter Avenue last night while trying to steal marijuana from one of them. A 19-year-old man had been shot in the abdomen, and a 20-year-old man had multiple gunshot wounds to both legs. The shooter fled the scene, but officers found Bryant nearby and initially arrested him for outstanding warrants. Police later determined he was a suspect in the shootings. Voters in Oklahoma still have time to head to the polls to cast their ballots in the state's primary election. In Ottawa and Delaware counties, voters will decide the Republican candidate for state offices, including corporation officer and District 1 state senator. There are also some county office primaries in Delaware County and a tax question in the town of Bernice. Polls remain open until 7 this evening. Beautification projects in Fort Scott, Kansas are underway, focusing on parks like on 3rd Street. 3rd Street Park's bathroom is being updated with locks, security cameras, and more. According to city officials, the project is paid for with grants, and the bathrooms are set to open in a couple of weeks.
We have done a lot of work on the 3rd Street Park bathrooms in particular. For as long as I can remember, they've only had toilets in those bathrooms. On each side, they didn't have sinks. So this year, we had new sinks installed.
Gunn Park and Ellis Park also have beautification projects underway. Warm and windy out there. Chief Meteorologist Doug Heddy.
Yeah, the heat's been sticking around for the past several days. Once again for us today, most of us right around 90 degrees, a smidge cooler actually than what we had yesterday. But you can see 89 Nevada, 88 in Anderson, Miami at 90. We have 88 in Pittsburgh right now, but still we have the humidity. So our heat index is a little bit higher, anywhere from about 92 to about 95 degrees. Very windy. Sustained winds have been kind of 15 to 20, and then at times we've been getting gusts 30, 35 miles per hour. This is going to stick around as we go through the overnight hours tonight. A lot of cumulus clouds, severe thunderstorms out to the west. We're going to be watching those as they start to work closer to us later on tonight. We're going to have more details on that here in just a bit.
See you soon. Oppressive heat is settling over the east and Midwest, stretching from Iowa to Maine through the end of the work week. Jared Hill reports.
The Windy City could use a cool breeze. This week, Chicago already breaking a heat record set in 1957, and the temps are still trending upward.
If you have AC, I would recommend just staying in front of the AC.
The first heat wave of 2024 is gripping a large swath of the country.
Those 100-degree real feel or heat index values will stretch from the lakes to the Gulf, and heat advisories stretch from New England all the way into the lakes.
Road crews and construction workers around Pittsburgh are battling the blazing sun, and the mayor of Hartford, Connecticut says if you can't stay inside,
come out to a splash pad. We've opened all the splash pads in the city of Hartford.
New York's governor activated the National Guard to help with heat emergencies.
This is a time of significant risk, and we're doing our best to make sure that all lives are protected.
Extreme heat can be more dangerous early in the season than when it hits later in the summer. Our bodies haven't had time to adjust to the higher temperatures, raising the risk of heat stress and heat stroke. Precious Daniels and Giovanna Towns of New Jersey got their exercise in before the day's peak heat.
And I told my friend, let's go. I don't care what you're saying. We're about to get this workout in. And tomorrow we'll come maybe a little earlier.
The rest of the week I will be indoors under the AC until the sun go down.
Some school districts are letting kids out early as some in typically cooler places like Syracuse, New York, struggle without air conditioning. And summer hasn't even officially started. Jared Hill, CBS News, West Orange, New Jersey.
We're going to have some tips for dealing with that heat a little bit later in Health Watch. In the west, the heat's fueling about 20 large wildfires that have burned more than 100,000 acres. Red flag warnings are in effect in parts of California and have been extended through tonight. And about 600 miles east in New Mexico, thick vegetation is challenging fire crews near the mountain town of Ruidoso, where wildfires are growing at an alarming rate. President Biden is using the 12th anniversary of the DACA program, which allowed migrants who were brought to the U.S. as children to stay and work without fear of deportation, to announce a new program that could help thousands already living in the U.S. to stay. As many as 500,000 immigrants could be on a new pathway to permanent U.S. residency. To apply for a green card, the migrants must already be married to a U.S. citizen, have lived in the U.S. for at least 10 years, and pass a background check. Still ahead, new travel destinations.
More Americans are traveling to far-flung locations as they look to explore emerging tourism destinations. I'm Wendy Gillette. I'll bring you to Alula, Saudi Arabia.
And next in Health Watch, tips on staying safe outside during this heat wave. Topping today's Health Watch, a new smartphone face screening tool could help paramedics to identify stroke in seconds, which is much quicker than current technologies. Researchers in Australia are using AI to develop new software they believe will save lives and reduce the risk of long-term disability for stroke patients. The technology uses the power of facial expression recognition to detect stroke by analyzing facial symmetry and specific muscle movements. People vaccinated against COVID have a reduced risk of developing long COVID. That's the finding of a study at Columbia University that found vaccinations also reduce the severity of infections. People with pre-pandemic health conditions, including diabetes, asthma, chronic lung disease, and a history of smoking, were linked to longer recovery times. The heat can be dangerous, and emergency rooms are expecting more patients with heat-related illnesses during this heat event. That's why doctors say it's best to limit your time outside with the temperature soaring, and it's critical to stay hydrated even before you go outside. Stephanie Stahl has more on how to keep your family safe.
The start of a scorching heat wave is underway, with people finding ways to beat the heat.
We have lots of water.
And splashing in the water, kids are keeping cool.
It's nice to have areas like this where we can cool down and get the kids outside, but, keep them cool.
Doctors say heat dangers add up after consecutive days of this spring sizzle. Health issues can start with heat cramps, then get more serious with heat exhaustion, and heat stroke can be deadly. Symptoms can vary, but the signs of heat exhaustion are dizziness, fatigue, cramps, and a rapid pulse. With heat stroke, people will get confused, they may start vomiting, and could stop sweating.
We're prepared to manage that. There's all sorts of things that we can do to both hydrate patients as well as manage their core temperature by cooling them either with intravenous cooled fluids, or we have other ways of doing that as well.
Dr. William Gray with Mainline Health says the emergency department is ready for the expected increase in patients with heat-related illnesses, with children and the elderly being at higher risk.
Best thing I can tell you, don't come outside.
Lou Joyner says he's getting his errands done early.
I want to just go back inside. I pay for that air conditioner. I want to go and enjoy it.
And for people who have to work in the heat like Jim Carberry, best to pace yourself and stay hydrated.
Do what you got to do, make people happy in the summer heat.
Good thing, because Jim has the all-important job of delivering ice cream. Stephanie Stahl, CBS News, Philadelphia.
Doctors say the heat can be especially dangerous for people with existing medical conditions, as well as the elderly and children. A new study at Tufts University shows the number of Americans eating poorly remains high. Researchers did find some improvement, though, over the past 20 years, with consumption of nuts, whole grains, and proteins rising. Gains in dietary quality were highest among younger adults. And that is a look at today's health news. A little bit later, why avocados could soon be in short supply.
Plus, it's only going to get a little bit hotter as we go through the next several days. We are going to look at that coming up. Well, of course, another hot and humid day for us today. Temperatures once again right around 90 degrees, heat indices higher than that, of course, with the heat and the humidity. It looks pretty good though. Here's a nice shot of our Indigo Sky Casino and Resort. Remember, Indigo is just outside of Seneca, Missouri. Looks pretty good. We do have those cumulus clouds which have been popping up over the past couple days. All right, so let's go into the beginning of summer here. So we have really two parts of our cycling weather pattern. This is the first part. So we're in this Thursday and Friday, and majority of the summer, we're gonna have high pressure parked here. So what this does for us is it brings in tropical moisture. So usually these types of setups, we don't hit 100 degrees a lot, but the trade-off is we sit into the mid-90s and you get those high heat indices. And then early next week, we switch to the part of the pattern where our high pressure starts to shift back toward the west, and this will be the drier part of the pattern that will start to give us temperatures above 100 degrees. So it doesn't look like it's going to be near as hot though as what we saw last summer, which is good news. 89 Nevada, 87 in Neosho, 90 at Grand Lake. We have 88 in Parsons. Heat indices are sitting low to mid 90s across the region. Looks good. Here's 7th. Here's Rangeline sitting at 90, southerly winds at 20. And of course, we've had gusts quite a bit higher than that. Check this out. Southerly winds kicking in, sustained at about 20, but our gusts have been 30, 35, even pushing 40 miles per hour at times. You can see the cumulus clouds, nothing really underneath them. Will stay dry throughout the evening hours. Thunderstorms booming out to the west. Severe thunderstorms right along a boundary. These stretch all the way up into northern parts of Minnesota. However, the farther these work east, they're going to fall apart. So I think by the time they even get into our general vicinity, by the time we get to, let's say, midnight 1 or 2, Yates Center, Fredonia, Neodesha, Chanute, Iola, you may get a scattered shower or a quick thunderstorm. Everybody else mainly stays dry. Starting lower 70s. As we go through the daytime hours tomorrow, dry through the morning, and then once we get into the afternoon, we're going to get some isolated thunderstorms covering about roughly 20 to 30% of the viewing area. These will die down once we lose the heating of the day tomorrow evening. And then as we go into Thursday, we'll start the day into lower 70s. Heat up again, high temperatures, upper 80s to near 90 degrees by Thursday afternoon. All right, day planner 72 to start, 85 by noon. High temp tomorrow of 89 degrees, plus our heat indices. They're going to be not as bad, but still kind of 91 to about 94 degrees for us tomorrow. So we're going to be watching that as we go into the next few days, especially as the temperatures start to accelerate upward. We're going to be near 90 the next few days, but look at this, by the weekend, we go up to 94, 93, 95, 96s next week, and a lot of humidity, hit and miss storms. So yeah, the heat waves, or it's not even a heat wave, but the heat will increase over the next week.
Yeah, those are the actual temps. I don't want to hear yet what it's going to feel like. Thanks, Doug. The Summer Olympics kick off on July 26th in Paris, but already some people are concerned that the scorching temperatures could impact the games and endanger the athletes. The last time Paris hosted the Olympics in the summer was in 1924. Back then, it was about 5.5 degrees Fahrenheit cooler than it is today. In a new report from the University of Portsmouth, athletes and scientists both warn this summer's combination of heat and humidity could be lethal. Exploration travel is on the rise. Coming up, we're going to explain how tourists are seeing more of the world. Topping today's Consumer Watch, Americans pulled back on spending last month. Retail sales rose just 0.1% in May. That's according to the Commerce Department, and it's below economists' expectations. Sales declined the most at gas stations, furniture stores, and shops that sell building materials and garden equipment. Meanwhile, spending was the strongest at specialty stores that sell sporting goods, books, and musical instruments. The slower than expected sales come as consumers continue to deal with high inflation and elevated interest rates. Avocado lovers out there, listen up. Your favorite superfood could soon be in short supply. That's because the U.S. Department of Agriculture has suspended avocado inspections in Mexico. The agency cited security concerns for agency workers' safety, but did not say what prompted those concerns. Produce already cleared for export will not be affected by the decision, but avocado supplies in the U.S. could be impacted if the pause on inspections drags on. A USDA spokesperson says the agency is committed to resuming inspections as quickly as possible. Exploration travel is becoming more popular after the pandemic as tourists seek out destinations that most have not visited. One emerging market is Saudi Arabia, which opened to tourists only 5 years ago. It's now the fastest growing tourism destination in the G20, according to the United Nations. Reporter Wendy Gillette visited the northwestern part of the country where she found a trip of exhilaration.
Vacation often includes a hike, and this one was billed as a climb up the sandstone cliffs at Alula Adventure Hub in Saudi Arabia. That meant a crash course in navigating a safety line, then clambering up a much steeper than expected path. All to reach the top. Oh my goodness. Where another challenge awaited.
2, 1, boom!
A free fall on a rope swing from almost 28 stories high. With feet back on solid ground, it was time to take a vintage Land Rover safari at sunset to view the nearby rock formations at the archaeological site Hegra, prized for its more than 2,000-year-old drawings and 70-foot-high ancient tombs. The aptly named Elephant Rock is illuminated, a night sanctuary in the desert.
Tourists here also typically visit the Old Town, which dates back to the 12th century, once on a trading route for incense and now filled with restaurants and a marketplace.
Incense is once again burning in the Old Town at Dar Tentora Hotel, which features cave rooms that recreate the past.
The Old Town looks like a castle.
Guide Amal Al-Johani, known here as a Rawi or storyteller, gives tours of the original restored mud brick homes. She points to progress in Saudi Arabia.
It's a change for us in a good way.
It's still mocktails only at restaurants. The country bans alcohol. But the tourism plan is expanding, with the government planning to invest a record-breaking $800 billion. The event's venue, Moriah, the largest mirrored building in the world, is part of the recent development. It's right next to Banyan Tree Alula, where we stayed for a special rate, known for its rock pool and tented villas matching the landscape.
Just look around. I believe the angle behind me, tells it all.
Philadelphia area travel advisor Joshua Bush visited the city during a week-long trip to Saudi Arabia.
A lot of the preconceptions that I had going into the country were very much dispelled.
His agency's bookings of off-the-beaten-path journeys have grown as much as 40% since the pandemic, when extended time at home brought yearnings for adventure. Wendy Gillette, CBS News, Alula, Saudi Arabia.
Alula attracted more than 260,000 visitors last year, but Saudi tourism officials hope that's going to grow to 2 million over the next decade. Some Americans are willing to break the bank for a Disney vacation, it seems. Nearly half of parents in the U.S. go into debt during a trip to see Mickey, Minnie, and the other legendary characters. That's according to a survey from LendingTree. Officials there say the average family breaks the budget by nearly $2,000, and in some cases, they need a few months to fully pay the tab. And many blamed pricey foods and souvenirs for busting the budget. A final check of the forecast next. Up next on the CBS Evening News, a look at the political tactics in small towns that some experts are calling lawful but awful. Then on KOAM News at 6, we're going to have more on the beautification efforts making progress in Fort Scott. Plus, Precious Moments Chapel in Carthage celebrates its 35th anniversary, and 3 members of the Pitt State softball team earn academic All-American honors. Stay with us for the CBS Evening News and then KOAM News at 6. Well, the wind has been howling out there. I don't know if you quite call it hot, but it's definitely on the upper edge of warm as well.
Warm hair dryer.
Yes, that's what it is.
But it's going to actually calm down as we go through the next couple days. Few pop-up afternoon storms tomorrow. We hang out near 90, and then we start to accelerate up through the 90s over the weekend and into next week.
Thanks, Doug, and thank you for joining us. CBS Evening News is next, and of course, we're going to be right back here for KOAM News at 6. We'll see you then. Let's make it a great evening.